Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for another live session. We are in Go Higher 2025, and it's another time when we come on here to talk about another leadership and life topic that is so relevant to our life and to our leadership. And it is so important that when we speak, we not just speak about leadership, but we speak both about life and about leadership. I am delighted one more time to have with me my co host this morning, Dr. Siegfried Howell. Dr. Howell has been with me for the past, I would almost say 3 years now on this program. We've been doing the program along with Dr. Marcia. And we are here again. Dr. Howell is a life, happiness, and relationship consultant and a master life coach. He coaches and equips men and the women they love who struggle with internal, intimate, and personal and professional relationships. He's also a corporate leadership and management trainer and does personal development as well. And let me just introduce myself. I am Dr. Janice Brooks, a leadership consultant and coach and trainer with the Maxwell team of certified leadership coaches, trainers. I am also a life strategist, pastoral counselor, and I'm a teacher of the Bible. I'm also available for corporate leadership training, management, and personal development. And I am the host of the Fireside Chat that is aired each Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find us on all the social medias. The Fireside Chat is also on YouTube at Dr. Janice People Builder. And I am on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram at the same Dr. Janice Brooks. So welcome and thank you so much. It's an honor to be here today with everyone who is listening now, or if you're listening later. I am glad to have you. If you're listening now, drop a comment in the chat as we go along. And if you hear the replay, please do put hashtag replay so that we can know that you have been with us and you are listening in. I want to start by letting us all know that as leaders, whether in business, in the community, or in our personal life, we're constantly faced with decisions that not just shape our organizations, but also influence those we lead. But beyond the strategies and the skills that we employ every day, there is something much more deeper and much more personal that drives our leadership, and it's our sense of self. And that's what we're talking about, how self worth can influence effective leadership, or what is the role of self worth on effective leadership. So, today, as we dive into this topic of how self worth plays a vital role in shaping our leadership capabilities, how it impacts our decisions and the relationships that we have, and what we can do to cultivate a healthier self relationship for greater leadership success. And that's what we'll be talking about today. And I'm excited to be here again. And so, as we go through, let's just reflect on how self leadership and self worth has played its part in our own life and our own experiences. And what we can do also, which is important, to help others to build that self worth and that self esteem. So, Dr. Howell, as we look at this topic, what is self worth to you? And how do you believe a leader's sense of self worth can impact their decision making process?
Self-worth to me, well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Janice. Self-worth to me is how a leader deals with the internal white noise, the internal chatter, the internal things that kind of throw them off course. Everyone has limiting beliefs, and everyone has those things that makes them feel a little insecure from time to time. But it's how you deal with it that determines the level of leadership that you have. And so how do leaders deal with it? Well, first of all, I think about the confidence in the choices that a leader would make. If a leader is confident and they are well, if they are well, how do I say, if they're well prepared, then it allows them to be more confident. I remember my first year of teaching, when the first day came and I went into the classroom, I was not confident. And I faked it through the whole day and I made it through. But the next day, I was a little more confident than I was the day before. So a lot of times, the confidence comes with experience. And kids tend to take advantage of new teachers because they don't have all of the tools and all the strategies that a seasoned teacher might have. And in the classroom, they say that and you're a novice teacher for up to like 3 years. And after 3 years of developing your craft, you become more like a seasoned teacher. So I would have to assume that in leadership, the same is true. The more experience you have with leadership, the more you can navigate those pitfalls that might come from time to time. A leader also has to maneuver through taking risk, but a leader should not just take blind risk, but take calculated risk or well-researched risk so that you minimize the chance of failure. The next thing is bias reduction. As a seasoned leader, one of the things that you should be able to maneuver is biases, whether they're confirmation, social, or all the different biases that can come. If you are a seasoned leader, you should be able to identify some of the pitfalls that come with biases and be able to navigate through them. And then I'm thinking about adaptability. Even when you do the best research possible and you try to make the best decision possible, at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And so if someone comes along with a better idea, you have to be adaptable enough and deny yourself ego enough to let someone else besides yourself take the reins, because they have an idea that can better the company or that problem that you're dealing with better.
Those are some excellent points, Dr. Howell. And I like how you talk about the self-confident aspect of it, because I do believe that a leader's sense of self-worth directly influences their confidence. Not just their confidence in being out there, but their confidence in making decisions. And it's clear, that when we look at this, leaders who feel more secure in who they are, in their value, they tend to make decisions more decisively, while those who have a lower sense of self-worth, they may be moving around and second guessing, should I do this, should I do that? And many times their actions, their decision-making process is influenced by others and not by themselves. And so, when you look at it in the broader sense, it is very important, if not critical, for a leader, and I would dare say every leader, to try and engage in some kind of activities that will build their self-worth. I remember we talked about that a few days ago as well. Find activities that will build your self-worth. And one of those kind of activity, I believe, is not just building your outer appearance. It's your mind, your soul, and your body. It has to all come together. And when you care for yourself, you will feel more valued. And by extension, you will have an improved sense of self, confidence, and that self-worth will improve. So we all tie this together, that a leader's self-worth will impact the decisions that they make throughout their lives. And The second question, when we lack this self-worth or this self-esteem, we do know that it will hinder our ability not just to make decisions, but it will hinder our ability to kind of motivate our teams and get them to the place that we want to get them to. And yes, there is no two ways about this. When you feel that in yourself, it flows out to others. So if you lack self-esteem or self-worth, you struggle to project that confidence, that assurance that is needed to inspire your team. And you're not able to model that sense of self so that the team will see, oh, my leader is a confident person. And confidence is not arrogance, Dr. Howell and my audience. Confidence is different from being arrogant. So my charge is to again get involved in activities, do things for yourself. And one simple thing I believe is positive self-talk. Another one is Dr. Howell always talk about the OPQ. Another one is just being around and being with OPQ. Only people, only quality people, people that builds you up. And finally, I'm going to say also, because we're talking about can a lack of self-esteem hinder a leader's ability to inspire? Why and why not? And the why not is because they refuse to build themselves up. And the why is that if you don't, you'll find yourself in that trap. And things like the comparison trap and the imposter syndrome, those things can affect a leader unless their self-esteem and self-worth is at a certain place and at a certain point. Your response, Dr. Howell?
Yes, I think of some of the leaders in the 60s and 70s that were brought into certain companies because of their leadership style. When Chrysler had a problem, when Ford had a problem, they called in certain leaders to head the car manufacturing team because of the leadership style. People knew what they were getting with those individuals. And even though a lot of those leaders back then were autocratic leaders, they knew what they were doing and they were brought in for a specific purpose. They did what they were brought in for, and then they moved on to another type of leader. Later on, we found out that we need leaders that are flexible, because if they don't have that adaptability, then you can drain your subordinates. Subordinates need to know what is expected of them, but subordinates also have some ideas. They have their own aspirations. And if you come on too strong as a leader and be too autocratic, you can burn out your subordinates and cause a lot of your good subordinates to jump ship. So that's the one thing that you have to look at. Secondly, you have to look at the fact that when leaders are not confident, they tend to be too autocratic, too demanding, too egotistical, and that also creates a brain drain, and a productivity drain on your subordinates. And so it creates inconsistencies. So an inconsistent leader is a person who will take the company or the team down the wrong pathway because the subordinates don't know what to expect from them. One minute they're nice, next minute they're not. One minute they're egotistical, next minute they want to be your friend. And so you don't know what to expect. And so if you're trying to foster collaboration, but the last person that collaborated lost their job, or the last person that voiced their opinion lost their job, then nobody wants to step up and be the next person, because yeah, you might get a promotion because you come up with a good idea, but you might be on the chopping block if they don't think it's a good idea, or if they think it's a good idea but after they fire you, or they take it as their own and they throw you to the wolves. And so these are things that people look at. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the lack of authenticity. If people don't know what you stand for, it's hard for people to find you authentic because they don't know. And as bad as I may not want to say this, people put people in boxes and we try to classify people. And so if you cannot classify what this particular leader is or their leadership style is, it's hard to classify them. So it's hard to buy into what it is they're trying to do.
Wow. Some excellent points there, Dr. Howell. In other words, you're saying authenticity is very important. And if people don't know what you're about, then it's hard for them to buy into what you're saying or even what you're doing. And so it's so important that you exude, you evidence that self confidence, that self worth in your aspects of leadership, so people can see that you're not just a willy nilly. You know what you are about. And it brings me to the point of self awareness, because self awareness is so important. And it plays a significant role in the development of leadership, and not just leadership, but of effective leadership. So the question is asked, what does self-awareness play in the development of effective leadership skills? And if I should answer that, I would say self-awareness is critical for leaders, because it allows them to really understand, as you said about authenticity, to understand who they are, their strengths, their weaknesses, and not just that, but how their actions, what they do, how it affects others. And we talk about the leadership toolkit all the time. And if I were to think of the most important piece of tool in a leadership toolkit, I would say that's self-awareness, because it covers almost everything else that you need. When you are aware of who you are, when you're able to assess yourself, then you can assess others. So in simple terms, to answer the question, I personally believe that gaining insight into our own personal traits, or whether we are an introvert or an extrovert, because we have some excellent introverted leaders and we have some excellent extroverted leaders. We can make the choices and the decisions that aligns with our strengths, and not just that, with our strengths, but is able to really lead the team that we're leading in a certain ways. So leaders who are self-aware, they're better equipped to adjust to whatever is happening around them. You ever see some leaders, Dr. Howell, and something happens outside of the course of events that they had planned, and they're thrown totally off track. So self-awareness helps you to realign easily. It equips you to adjust and to have that approach to different situations. So the simple answer, again, without self-awareness, there is no effective leadership. Your addition to that, Dr. Howell.
I want to bring in someone like Jim Rohn, who always spoke about working on yourself. I want to talk about Tony Robbins, who also always talked about developing yourself. And then I want to talk about Warren Buffett, who always spoke about working on yourself. And then from there, I want to highlight three things. A leader must know what they know and how much they know. A leader must also know what they don't know, and then work on building that. But a leader must also be aware of the fact that there are things that they don't know, and surround themselves with people who can fill in those blind spots. And self-awareness is the one tool that a leader can use to identify what they know they don't know, but also with the help of the people around them, they're high quality people, what they don't know. because what you don't know can trip you up when you're overly confident about something. And the research shows us that men tend to be overly confident and take on jobs and assignments that they may not be qualified for. And they say, the research says that women tend to underestimate how valuable they are and tend to step back from the limelight because they don't feel as confident as they should with the information that they know. So men are overly confident, women are underconfident. And so with self-awareness and proper self-awareness, you can say, hey, I may not feel confident, but it based on past experiences, what I have done was good and above what I thought I was capable of doing. So maybe I should try and do this. But also, it should help you to say to yourself, what can I work on? And just this morning, I was watching something from Warren Buffett, and he said you should never go to bed after completing the day without learning something new each and every day. How many of us would not exude confidence if we learned something new every day? Not something stupid, not something insignificant, but something in your field or something in an area that you are interested in that would exude confidence when you spoke about it, that will make you feel better because you learned that one piece of information that day. So how many of us would not have better emotional regulation knowing that, hey, I am more aware of myself than the people around me? Or people wouldn't have empathy development, say, well, you know what, last week I was like this, but because of what I learned, I'll just take the back seat now because it's their time to shine. How many of us won't practice better empathy if we were more aware of the fact that some people need to be more upfront than we do? Even if we are a leader, it might be the difference between keeping that person motivated in that company or losing them to the competition. Because proper leadership is knowing when to relinquish your power so that the betterment of the team is at the forefront of every decision you make.
Wow. Wow. We are talking this morning about how self-worth um, can influence effective leadership, the role that self-worth plays in effective leadership. And this is such a potent topic that we are on today. And Dr. Howell, as we move along, I am at the question where uh, we have to ask ourselves, how do we think that a leader's self-worth can really influence the overall space that they operate in, whether in the organization, whether in the church, whether in the school, whether at home? How does that self-worth influence the culture around them? And I am going to say that self-worth, that leader's self-worth, it shapes that setting that they're in, that culture. And I want to, as you always use acronyms, I want to this morning just think of an acronym to use. And it's CREM, CREM. Wow. And we talk about a lot of times creme de la creme, the top of the top, the best of the best.
Yes.
So I want to use that creme, Dr. Howell, because the C is really communication. And we all know that your sense of self-worth definitely affects your communication style, how you communicate to people overall. Even the literal words you say, that shows up in your sense of self-worth. And when we come to the R, I want to think about the level of resilience that a leader show, because we know that in this day and age where the wherever you are as a leader, you are going to be faced with challenges, and sometimes I say significant challenges. So without that um, sense of self-worth, you are going to become defensive, and you're going to be affected by everything. But when you have that resilience that is developed right there, you're going to show a calm and a composed sense of self, and that helps in solving the problem that is around you. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything for the problem to be solved, because people start to look at you and how you manage, how you deal with it. So they jump in and start to do things, because you're not hip hopping around the place. You're calm and composed. You're expressing that sense of resilience around you, and others catch on to it because it's contagious. And for the we talk about creme. So for the E, I look at empowerment. Whether in your home, school, church, you have to empower those around you, and you cannot do that without self-worth. It is impossible for you to empower others when you yourself do not feel empowered. So a leader with high self-worth is more inclined is to trust and empower their people around their team members, which in its essence encourage ownership, as I talked about before, of whatever is happening around you. People will jump in and say, let me do this, let me do that, because they see how you empower them. And the final one we're talking about, creme, is modeling. And you can model many things, but I want to say model the behavior that you want to see others use. Model behaviors. Leaders who value themselves are more likely to respect. I read a post yesterday, and it talked about anger in the workplace, how anger is on the rise in the workplace. So a leader who models the behavior that they want to see in others, the fairness, the empathy, the respect, and all of the different types of behavior, they set the tone for collaboration and for respectful interactions across the organization, the home, the school, the church, wherever you go. So I want us to remember the creme when we're thinking about how a leader's self-worth can influence people around them. We talk about the communication, the resilience, the empowerment, and the model. Model whatever you want to see others do. Dr. Howell, over to you.
Man, oh man, oh man. There's so many things I want to talk about. I was just watching a documentary, and they were saying that America ranks 24 in work happiness and lifestyle happiness when compared to other countries around the world. And one of the things that I look at is the socialist way that we have a way of doing things that is more focused on money. It's focused on the bottom line. It's focused on profits. And what we find is that when a company is driven by money, a lot of times the customers will suffer because the cheapness of the quality of the products, or the employees will suffer. And so think about this. In the Caribbean, when people come up here to spend time with us, it's not for 2 weeks. Sometimes it's a month and a half. They get longer vacation times than we do over here in this country.
Of course.
And I resent that sometimes. And my father was telling me of a couple of friends just 2 weeks ago. He was telling me that he had some friends that came up here and they worked and worked and worked, and it seemed like they didn't accomplish very much. They came down there in their 60s, and within 10 years, they accomplished more in the Caribbean 10 years than they did with 30 years up here, because it wasn't money driven. And so companies give you an opportunity to make a living and to make a life when over here you just barely make a living. The second thing I want to talk about, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but have you ever seen when the pastor and the first elder are at odds and it splits the church in half? And so you have half the church that don't talk to the other church, and it creates a toxic environment.
Wow.
The culture of confidence and the culture of toxicity is one of the two things that can really hurt an environment, whether it's a church, whether it's a business, whether it is a team. When you have one pitted against the other, you have two leaders in a team, and they cannot compromise. They cannot let ego be put aside. It creates a culture of toxicity versus a culture of confidence. So we were saying before that when a leader is confident, it shows and it exudes an environment where people can learn, where people can thrive. But when two people are overly confident, it creates a toxic environment where ego starts to take over. Well, you always get to do this, so I want to do this time. And now it becomes, my idea may not be better, but because you always get to lead, now I want to posture. I want to show that I also am important. And you put the team aside versus
your personal
solving the problem. And so you can create a toxic environment when you're not accommodating, and then you lose the supportive environment, because when you have half the team supporting one person and then the other half supporting the opposing team, which is supposed to be one team, you have an environment that's no longer supporting the solving of the problem or the growth of the company. And so, like I said, it breeds toxicity. And then last but not least, transparency and integrity. Two leaders can be transparent, but they're not honest with the fact that it's ego driven versus problem driven or problem solving driven. And so they can say, well, I told them everything and they chose what they wanted to choose. Yes, but they came behind you because they like you, not necessarily because you were the best thing to solve that problem. And so you can mess up as a leader if you do not learn how to accommodate, if you do not learn how to be reflective and say, well, what is best for this team at this point in time? Have I been overshadowing everyone else? Have I given everyone else a chance to get their ideas across? Now, I heard a leader say 2 weeks ago, I do not mind when people in my group voice their opinion. I do not want soldiers following me, but I do want obedience. So he said, I will take everybody's suggestion. Me as the leader, I will find the best way through it. But then I want everyone to follow me through it. So in other words, I want people who trust me and my leadership ability. And I believe, what is the name of From Good to Great? Jim Collins, one of my best books that I've read. He calls that getting the right people on the bus. And the bus driver is the leader. And so if you're the leader, you want to get the wrong people off the bus and get the right people on the bus so that they can follow you on that journey to success, to problem solving, to a more healthy team environment.
Wow. That is significant again. I always love the getting the right people on the bus, because if the wrong people are on the bus, you're in for trouble.
Yes, definitely.
And there are many buses here with the wrong people on them. And that is why we see so many things happening around us day by day. So, as we wrap up, we never want to leave a session without giving at least a strategy or two to make it better, to improve, to go your way and do things differently. So, my last question, Dr. Howell, is how can leaders work on improving their self worth without appearing arrogant or overconfident? And just one sentence or two I want to say: practice self reflection. That's the most important part, because it's inside of that self reflection that that self awareness flows out. Recognize your achievements. What have you done yesterday, last year? And when you see your achievements, don't get puffed up or arrogant. Stay grounded. Focus on humility. And above everything else, no one is perfect. So look for areas where you can improve, areas where you can grow, and celebrate those accomplishments rather uh, than just looking at your own personal accomplishment. As I talk about, recognize your achievement. Look at the achievement of the people who you're working with, the team, your people at home, at school, at church. Recognize the team's accomplishment and not just recognize them, celebrate them. And those are simple yet very effective ways to improve your self worth without appearing to be arrogant or overconfident. What would you add to that, Dr. Howard?
I like to watch a whole bunch of different things. And I wasn't a reader growing up, but I started to learn to read within the last 10 years. But I watch a lot of documentaries because it's a quick way to distill the information into 30 minutes or hour or two. And one of the things I was watching some Hollywood stars, and they were saying, you're only as good as your last blockbuster. And so a lot of leaders might be overconfident because of the success of the past. But you have to be mindful of this situation that's in front of you now. Because at some point in time, your ego becomes overinflated and you tend to make simple rookie mistakes. You tend to be overly confident and you tend not to dot all your I's and cross all your T's. And you make mistakes that people who are hating on you may not be able to get behind you because of the mistakes that you're making. Secondly, do a SWOT analysis. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know your opportunities to improve. But last but not least, know your threats. Those areas that you don't know.
Wow.
But necessary for leadership. We talked about that earlier. And then surround yourself with high quality people that will push you to become better over time, not bitter over time. And that's where the true value of a leader will shine, when the people around you don't make you comfortable. They make you grow. A lot of times we surround ourselves with people who are cheerleaders. They make us feel like we're doing stuff good. But you also need to surround yourself with people who will make you grow, who will say, yeah, you did that last time, so let's up the ante a little. Let's try this approach, and make you slightly uncomfortable, because growth comes from being uncomfortable, not comfortable.
Wow. What's an excellent way this morning to wrap up the session, Dr. Howell. High quality people. Growth comes from being uncomfortable, not just comfortable. Yesterday, I also wrote and I said that while we all need a level of comfort in our lives, we cannot live without some comfort. But it's when we decide to sit in that comfort zone, that's when it becomes a challenge, a problem. So, as we wrap up this morning, I want to thank you so much, those who were listening in, live with us. I want to thank you so much for being here with us. It was such a thought provoking conversation this morning. Dr. Howell brought out some excellent examples, and there were so many insights that we talk about. And if you come back here to listen, I want you to please remember to put hashtag replay so we can know that you have been here with us. It's clear from what we talked about today that leadership isn't just about the skills or the strategies that we employed. It's how we see and take care of ourselves. That is a huge part of leadership. Self-worth. It plays a critical role in how we approach our challenges as we talk about the creme, how we inspire others, and ultimately how we lead with authenticity and with purpose. So let's take this away from here today. Let's wrap this up and let's take this away from here today. It starts from within. Great leadership starts from within. It's not just about external achievements, but it's an internal belief in your own value and your own potential. So I encourage every leader who may be listening to this at some point in time, continue to reflect on your own self-worth, nurture it, and use it as a tool to better your leadership. For myself and Dr. Howell, we have continued to do that as often as possible. As a matter of fact, I can assure you that I do that every day. Is there any way that I fall short? Where am I coming up short in my own self-leadership? And to make amends, to make sure that I lead first myself with purpose and then others the same. Because leaders' self-worth often acts as the cornerstone for shaping the culture of any organization, anywhere they are. So that strong sense of self-worth, when it is projected with confidence, with positivity, with stability, it culminates in that supportive, growth-oriented type of environment. And I won't forget to say that on the flip side of that, it instills a culture of fear, of micromanagement, of inconsistency. That is why investing in your personal leadership development and self-awareness not just can be, but it is pivotal in shaping the health of your life and the organization where you are planted for such a time as this. I want to thank you again, Dr. Howell. If you have a final word, you
Oh,
get
you
that
said it
in.
all. That's awesome. I was just listening to it. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you covered
Yes,
all the points, definitely.
yes. So we want to thank you so much. We will be back here next week, God's willing, for another life and leadership session as we talk about a topic that is relevant, not just also critical to our life and leadership. Once again, it's Dr. Janice. I am part of the Maxwell team of leadership coaches, speakers, and trainers. I'm a leadership consultant. And from SAS Solutions, you see SAS Solutions tag at my back there. That is what we do at SAS Solutions. We do professional training and coaching, leadership development. We do consulting, business, and life strategies. We help you to grow your life. If you think of something that you need to get done, connect with us at SAS Solutions. I'm sure we have someone in our organization who can get it done for you. We are here to help you. We amplify strategies as your life grows. Dr. Howell, tell us what you do and how people can connect with you once again as we close.
Yes, I help people with relationships, whether it's internal, personal, or professional relationships. And you can reach me, just Google me. Just my name is very unique, Dr. Siegfried Howell. You'll find me on any form of social media, and you will find what you need from there. So thank you very much, and continue to learn, continue to lead, and continue to grow in a very purposeful way. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. God bless you all. You have a great Friday and a wonderful weekend. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.